my name is Marianne Petit. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background because what I've been doing is around canine genotyping for completely non-scientific reasons, and there's nothing testable in terms of a hypothesis around this. But my background is that I actually make pop-up books. I'm with NYU Shanghai, and I'm a paper engineer. And I had dogs, and they both got sick at the same time for different reasons, and I was presented with both of them dying within a very short period of time. And so I thought, how can I capture their essence before they die? So I, especially since photography was not necessarily an adequate means, I found that I was actually just chronicling death or chronicling cancer, and not necessarily. So I went with the first thing that I could, which is just fingerprints, because they're paw prints, because that seemed like the obvious thing, and I thought it was the easiest thing. And it wasn't easy, and that's really what they wanted to do instead, was run around. So I crowdsourced ideas for how to capture essence within the time frame that I had, and I had lots of suggestions around it. So we sort of participated in this project together, where I did paw prints, and again I posted out, and then I got involved in 3D scanning. So if you were here for the AutoCAD presentation, just using my iPhone and scanning, and found that just in more non-traditional ways, I was capturing much more information around the essence of these creatures and outputting them to 3D as just to memorialize the process. The process was really the key thing, and using the Connect as well. And then I decided to really look at canine genotyping, what actually exists online. And there's a lot online. There's like dogs can't talk, but their DNA can, which I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment. But most of it is around determining what kind of breed you have, and at which point that was not something that was particular interest to me, because I knew that they were mixed, and that didn't necessarily interest me. Creating artistic outputs from your canine and feline DNA, which starts at $250 and goes up higher, or telling you doing genetic disease testing. At which point I also knew that both of them were dying for different reasons, and so that didn't interest me either. So I thought, well, what can I do? So I actually thought, can I get the data if I use any of these kits? So I emailed all these companies and said that I wanted just the data, not the outputs, and I described what I do. And nobody responded, or if they did, they told me that they would not release the data to me, that they were not permitted, which I thought was an interesting thing. So I went to GenSpace in Brooklyn, which is a DIY biolab, to see what I could do. And the first thing that was suggested was that maybe I work with tissue samples, and I realized that I didn't actually want to maintain their lives any further, and that if I killed their tissue samples after they were dead, I would feel like they had died again. And so I just grabbed samples and basically looked at just how I could preserve those samples while they were still alive, using standard techniques. And then looking to see what was available online that I could do locally instead. And I found that all the kits are available online, actually, so that you can get the canine genotyping kits online, you can get the microsatellite kits online, and you can mail in the results as well. The only problem was that we would need about 100, we needed a lot more samples than my 2 dogs. So I thought, well, why don't I reach out again and see if other people would be interested in this? And so I just sent out a couple of emails basically saying, this is not about breed identification, it's not about preventing your dogs from getting any disease. This is about understanding what the difference is between, and running through this whole process together, what that might be. It would be an educational sort of workshop instead. And within 2 hours, I had about 25 responses from a single email that said, yes, I'm interested, and I have 2 dogs, right? And so the idea was really, and then I received many, many more around cats. And so the idea was really about looking at sort of, animal understanding more than anything. And so these workshops are actually happening. They're actually happening. We're ready to go. And one thing I've discovered since I've arrived to Shanghai is that a lot of people really love their dogs here as well. And so I'm looking to see if there would be interest here as well. But I think one of the main things that I wanted to actually sort of really investigate and make clear is that there's a whole movement around preserving your pets for the possibility of future cloning. And most people who have relations with animals and love their animals actually are not necessarily interested in this. They're much more interested in trying to understand what are the unique characteristics, and that they could actually do it within a science context and compare those results to other animals as well is of interest to people. So that's basically, I'm working with canine genotyping. That's it. Thank you.